coach at Rosendale, many of you might remember him. Very sorry that Jeannie Fleming Lake, our past supervisor, passed away this month. Della Marintesh, Ellen Crookson Mazuka, and Gertrude Connolly. A minute of silence. Yes, and Dennis Kay's wife.
Dorinda.
I don't know if everybody knows.
Dorinda Boma.
Yeah, she,
Dennis Case.
Thank you. Anybody have any public input or community events related to anything that's not on the agenda they'd like to speak on?
I have one.
Okay. You know the public.
The company, the Pilgrim Pipeline Company, which is proposing to build a crude oil pipeline through Rosendale and other communities, is sending a representative to our next town board meeting next Wednesday to give a presentation and answer questions from the board. So it'd be good for the community to attend. Also on Monday, November 17th at 7 p.m., there's a public informational forum on the proposed Pilgrim pipeline at SUNY New Paltz Lecture Center 104. And it is being co-sponsored by a large number of organizations.
Anyone else? Andy, you want to start with? We have two public hearings we're going to start with.
Please take notice that a public hearing pursuant to the town law section 108 shall be held at the Rosendale Municipal Center, 1915 Lucas Avenue, Connecticut, New York, on the 5th day of November 2014 at 7 p.m. for the public to be heard on the preliminary budget for the town of Rosendale, including the High Falls Water District for the year 2015. The preliminary budget is available in the office of the town clerk, where it may be inspected by any interested person during office hours. Annual salaries for elected officials are proposed as follows. Town board, $6,245.46 each. Town supervisor, $37,460. Highway superintendent, $52,750. Town clerk, $31,000. Tax collector, $9,500. Town justice, $14,848.14 for each two. All persons interested and citizens shall have an opportunity to be heard on said preliminary budget at the time, place aforesaid by the order of the Town of Rosendale Town Board dated October 24, 2014, Manny Constable, Town Clerk. I don't know how you read.
Thank you. Does anybody have any comments on the High Falls Water District budget? If not, I'd like to keep that open and move on to the Town of Rosendale budget 2015. If anybody needs a copy, there's some copies up here. And if you'd like to speak on the town board budget, please come up and sign the piece of paper here. Billy?
I have a question on High Falls water budget.
Yes.
Is there any preparation for them to tie into the water line? It's going to go to Stone Ridge?
There's nothing in the budget for that. There's no formalized agreement yet, and we're still working on getting permission, and an agreement hasn't been drafted yet with the college and the county.
Thank you.
Thank you. anybody want to sign up to speak on the town of Rosendale budget? Okay, we'll keep that open also. We have, I'd like to keep it, I think we have to keep it open 30 minutes, right? So we'll keep that open, and then if anybody changes their mind and has a question, we can just raise your hand and we'll let you speak. I think we can move on to other business in the meantime. So it's 7:06. Mandy, would you keep an eye on the clock for me? We have Jason Ballard here from Barton and Judas to talk to us about the sewer application that we discussed I think it was last month, right?
Yeah.
Last month, about possibly going after some more funding for grant money for both planning, for engineering services, and for the actual work, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you want to stand up and give a little presentation in public? Sorry, I don't have the podium in the right place.
No. All right, I'll just come on over here then. You know, over the past, in 2010, we did a sewer study at the wastewater treatment plant to kind of upgrade it. Terry's been keeping it running pretty well over the years, but the stuff's starting to get old, outdated. So back in 2010, we put a proposal together to USDA to get it funded. We really didn't get the funding package. We didn't have the scores that we needed to get that funding. So it kind of went to the back burner for the last 4 years. Some additional funding has become available. Some of that funding includes a pre-planning grant, and which is what you guys have in front of you now, is to update that report. We're gonna, through talking with Terry, DEC, we're kind of looking to change the approach of upgrading this plant from what we did before. Before it was just gonna be a total upgrade of everything from preliminary treatment, primary treatment, clarification, there's solids, where now we're looking to get it kind of up into compliance into a phased approach, so it's not such a big, you know, capital budget right off. So part of this, the first phase is just to upgrade that report. Instead of, in 2010, we looked at doing either an SBR or what we call the ballasted flock, which helps settling. The SBR is sequential batch reactors, which will treat it in batches versus a continuous flow. Those two improvements would require pretty much a total upgrade to the plant, where as we're looking at phases, we would look at kind of the main problems of the plant right now, which is the clarifications, getting the solids out before it gets discharged into the round out. So as part of that, the USDA has come up with a planning grant to help out doing all that cost. And over the past several weeks, we've been kind of communicating with USDA to get hopefully around about $7,500 of that paid for out of the 18 grand it would take to revise the report, put the application in, go do some other funding sources, see if we can help supplement that. Once we get the report done, we can submit it to USDA with another application to see if we can get some more money from them to do the actual construction. That we're not quite sure how much we can get for that, but I think it was about 25% grant. So around 250,000 grant with a low interest loan to top it off.
Is it low interest?
Yeah.
We don't know what it is, though.
We don't know what it is. That's why we also want to go to the Environmental Facilities Corporation, which they have more 0% loans than USDA. USDA usually has a subsidized loan to try and get the best funding package possible for Rosendale.
And the other thing is, because we did that survey,
Yes.
we can use that survey again.
Yep. Using that survey kind of helps and actually boosts the score up, where we are eligible for the funding, where before we were just below it. So that was definitely effort well spent to get that survey done.
Yeah. Thank you, Terry. And Teresa.
So, if there's any questions?
Does the
Or?
board have any questions? I know we've talked about this a few times. I think this is a good way to get, I'm sure maybe Terry'd like to give some input, he's already talked about it a little bit, but I think it's a good opportunity to get some of these things corrected.
You know, basically everybody knows it's a 35-year-old plant. It's 35 years old this year, and it's really seen no appreciable, you know, other than, you know, complete breakdowns. So it's, you know, it's time, and our energy efficiency is, you know, probably bottom. You know, Central Hudson doesn't even send us one of those reports because, you know, it doesn't even make sense. You know, so we definitely have issues there.
I mean, I think we could save a lot of money by doing these upgrades to the whole sewer district just by having, not having the waste and energy costs.
Absolutely.
And, you know, combined with the fact that you're also putting repairs in for things that are breaking down.
Is there any funding from NYSERDA just on the basis of?
Yeah, I think we can go for incentives and stuff for getting high efficiency motors, putting VFDs on certain pumps, absolutely. Yep. Yep. That may, I mean, as we kind of talked about doing in phases, one of the main phases is the clarification of the plant. They're not operating as they should right now. So that's kind of the main focus, is to get them back in compliance prior to discharging the creek. And then as we move through different phases and we kind of look at the budget and how much we want to spend in each phase, we can incorporate as much of this energy efficiency as we can.
Do you have a sense of how much the energy efficiency can be improved percentage-wise?
Oh, looking at the pumps and stuff, they're you know, we
Like
can go.
100% probably.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably, just looking at efficiency of the pumps and what's there and the blowers, you know, they're probably running in the 40 to 50% range efficiency, where we can get them up at hopefully to 80–90%. And improve the operation so they're just not continuously running. We can step it, and with the VFDs we can lower and increase the speed to get just what's needed for the treatment versus full blast all the time.
So, you know, if the board wants to give me a nod on this, we'll have it ready for a resolution next week. We have a few other things to get in place. We have to get some things. Do we need the bond stuff to get started by next week? do you think?
No, not for this one.
Yeah.
Not for this one. Because this one's gonna start help, not only do we have to revise the PR, but we gotta, it starts the actual, putting the application together to submit to USDA to get, you know, the $7,500.
So what do we gotta do to get a resolution for next week?
Just draft it, make sure Mary's happy with it, and we can do that next week.
Before we need a birthday cake for its 40th year.
Yeah.
Before we need a birthday cake for its 40th year, we gotta get moving on it.
My only other question is budgeting wise, do we have to budget?
I-
Do we have it for what we need for this year, or do we have to budget more for next year?
I had budgeted some money for sewer grant applications, which is, we can use that and probably encumber it, so we should be okay. I'll probably have to talk to you more about the numbers to make sure that I'm covered, but, yeah. The first phase of this is the grant application, for the planning, which will pay for some of the engineering. I think it was it 18, right? 18,000?
Yeah, it's 18,100 for the engineering.
And so I think it was covering like 10, we had to
8,
pay
closer
10,
to 8.
or, what was it?
Closer to 8.
8, yeah.
Yeah, so talking with them, they try to do around 50%, but they may take out like the application preparation from that. So to do the reports, about probably around 15 grand. So I'm looking to the town to match whatever they give. So if they give 7,500, you guys pay 7,500 plus the cost of submitting the application or going out looking at other funding.
So I had the funding for that, and then the next step to do the application for the grant, that would be, if we go to as low interest, we would probably have to raise, I would assume we'd have to raise rates to cover that, because it's either that or we're doing it yearly. But you got a year or so before you start to budget for that, right?
Oh, yeah, before we
So
actually get into the
have-
capital improvements,
Right.
you know, if you guys wanna do this, we get this passed, you know, next week.
Right.
By the time we got a bunch of the data from Terry already, because we gotta update it for 4 years ago, update
Right,
the cost.
Right.
Look at the process, look at the sequence of construction. You know, it's gonna take a couple months to get the report done. And then we have to go through all the funding, you know, paperwork and timelines and approvals, which
At what stage were we gonna start with first?
clarification.
Clarification,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, so, and disinfection, try and get that improved, so, because right now, there's not enough volumes in the clarifiers to settle out the solids coming from the treatment system, and sometimes it escapes out into the stream.
So you already have it step by step on
Well,
the
we-
stages that you're gonna do?
Yeah, I think we know, because I mean, we've met with Terry, we've gone to the plant, we've talked about different alternatives, what makes more sense, as
So
far as.
that's
how
gonna
to-
give us a good idea of each block, what we're roughly gonna need
Yes.
to move along,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
But
yeah.
you're gonna apply for one grant, right? You're not
Yes,
gonna do
we are gonna
your-
apply for, right now, for, this is just to apply for that pre-planning
Right,
grant.
right,
And then we're gonna try and boost your score up with the Environmental Facility Corporation
right,
to see if there's any possibility we can get something from there.
right.
Right.
So we're not gonna, that doesn't include any applications to them, that's just to
Improve the score.
improve the score, make sure we're still on the list, and if something comes up and we can get money from them, we'll take advantage of it.
Okay. So I'll bring this back to the board next week, and I think we're ready to go.
Okay.
Do
Yeah,
you
one-
wanna just talk about the other one, just to see how
Okay.
the board feels about it?
Okay. The other one that, we kinda sat down today was for the storm mitigation loan program through EFC. We talked about it, what was it, 6 months ago or something, about doing the I&I study and trying to do that. They have a list just came out last month. Again, Rosendale was one under the line. The one thing with EFC they're really harping on is shovel ready, making sure we meet the deadlines. The next deadline is December 1st, where if you wanna go forward with that, we would have to do, seeker, SHPO, and a bond resolution, to get you set. The issue is, there's a couple projects above you, if they don't go forward and meet that deadline, it goes to the next one in line. The bad part about the category that Rosendale is in, there's only 2 above the line. So you're third on the list, but the line is after 2.
So, you know, I'm just gonna tell the board that it's my recommendation that we don't try to make this deadline. I think, the risk is high that we won't qualify.
Yeah, it all depends.
That's my feeling
yeah.
on it, because we have, only 2 people would have, you know, you get 10 people above you that might back out, and, you know, then you might have a better chance of somebody not being able to get it done.
Yeah.
But having only 2, I think it's a little bit risky. They do have another deadline if, you know, in
June 1st.
in June.
Yes.
So if
Our position doesn't change.
our
in-
position
in-
doesn't
in- in
change,
the
so
place.
we might be in a
No.
better position to evaluate that, I
Right.
think, over the next 6 months to
Right.
I
figure
mean,
out.
depending on how much money they keep putting into the program for the June 1st, and if the 2 above you go off, then you would be first in line and they would drop that line
And
down.
I'd rather take that chance personally. That's my recommendation to the board.
And is this funding pot being affected by the governor taking money out of funding for the Tappan Zee Bridge? I mean, are we?
That I don't know the very specifics where he's pulling the money from, but it's all part of that. It's all part of that loan program.
The only other thing I will mention on this is that we do have another avenue of funding for this, and that's through the New York Rising. It was identified to correct stormwater management. So my recommendation is let's hold off on this, and we'll see where I'd like to make the stormwater management the second project on our New York Rising list. And so I think this would be a better way to go right now. And if we're working on the New York Rising program, then I think it's time to like really push for this so you can have 2 funding sources.
Yeah.
So I think that's the way to go, if the board's okay with that.
Mm.
Sounds like a good idea.
I mean, I guess the stormwater mitigation loan program, I think it's pretty good. It's 25% grant, 75% zero interest
Yeah,
loan.
it's a
so.
great program.
Yep.
It's,
Yep.
you know, being the next
Yeah,
person on the
first one,
list,
yeah.
it's
Right.
tough, but I think you know, let's see how the 2 ahead of us do. If
Yep.
they don't make it, then, you know, we might be worth it over the next 6 months to get ready,
Yeah.
because maybe they're not gonna get ready.
Yeah.
And we might be able to do a little investigating to see where they're at.
Yeah. we're pretty sure one's gonna make it.
Jason, do you know which two they, or is that public?
One of them
Yeah,
he
it's
knows-
actually in your
One of them he
packet.
knows is gonna make it.
Yeah,
so.
well, it's,
That makes it even harder, the
village
odds
of
are even.
Woodridge and, I think it's the town of Highland.
If you go to the list, you'll see,
Yeah.
the packet. It's,
I guess it really doesn't matter. Just my curiosity than anything else.
where is it?
Should be the first one
Got it?
after the signature page.
It's not where the list was. The last page, okay.
Town Highland, right?
Yeah. Woodridge is gonna submit about September first. So I know about
I
that,
looked
I
at it
wasn't sure
earlier,
about
just-
Woodridge,
Woodridge.
right.
So that means really only one project would have to kind of fail or fail to do their due diligence and
Yeah.
and screw it up, so.
Yeah.
I would say that, let's table this for now.
We
Is
don't
everybody
make
okay with that?
it fire, yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Jason about the other work that we're doing?
Jason, thank you.
Thanks very
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks, Jason.
I'll talk to you tomorrow, Jason.
Okay. Thank you.
Um, Jill, time-wise, are we supposed to do this resolution for the water levies tonight, or she's got 7 more days, right? Okay, so the next thing on the list is the delinquent water and sewer levies. I don't have the list yet, so basically next Wednesday we'll have the list and we'll officially, formally agree that those have to be re-levied on the tax bills. I seem to remember that Teresa kind of keeps working at it until right up to the end there. So that'll be for next week. And then we have the grant, the application for the grant. So we have a very small group of stuff here. And then the last thing is, as you all know, we've been working on the bathhouse, and the highway department opened up the foundation to be able to look at expanding the slab to be able to support the new roof and the addition, and found a serious amount of deterioration. I don't know, you only put it in mine, right? So I'm gonna pass these photos around so you guys can see. I know some of you went over to the site and looked at it. We had, so we had to do an emergency hiring, which I did sign the contract. I had Bob and Ken come in, but I'd like to do a resolution to support it. We tried to get, what happened was Tom went out, he wrote a letter in here. He went out to get 3 quotes when they realized there was an emergency situation. We had a timing issue, and only one person was able to make that happen in a short amount of time. So it became an emergency. We did break the work up into 2 contracts, just so the board could see that the emergency part was $66.70, and the remaining work for the slab was $98.50. But at that point, I felt it did not make sense to go out to are you guys listening to me?
Yeah. Oh.
It
That's
makes
it.
sense.
Now we
to-
are.
Supervisor, can we put them 2 at a time now, please?
Yes.
I broke the contract into 2 parts, one to do the emergency work, one to do the work the addition, but felt that we needed to approve everything with one person because it would not be financially sound to be able to go back out and get a different person to continue the work. But as you can see, it was pretty seriously scary.
Yeah.
And both Tom and the concrete people were concerned that we'd run into a freeze, so we wanted to get this done ASAP.
Were they able to, with the repair, do something for them recurring in this way?
Yes, I
Future
actually can send you guys the photos of the work that's been done so far.
Yeah, they did.
They took out all the deteriorated work, which really left a huge amount of open space. Bob can probably tell you more about it. And then they made forms and poured the concrete already. So That part's been done. Do you, anything to add on that, Bob?
No, all the walls are stabilized and this was backfilled today. So, the mason will be in Monday and we'll be working with him because of the water situation there.
Yeah, we have a lot of water too.
So, Bob, you guys be doing the drainage, working on the drainage there?
Well, we're still waiting on the engineer's upgraded plans, but we're kind of switching things on the go because of the water. Everything's going good so far.
So I would like to do a resolution for this, 11/20/14/1.
Tomorrow might be a good day to see where you're at with water. You're supposed to get water.
Is it draining right now, Bob?
No.
No, so,
I understand we're supposed to get a lot of rain for it tomorrow, so that's probably gonna give us an idea of where we're at.
but the new plan
That's why
will,
we bought a sump pump.
right.
We-
But the new plan will draw the water away from
No,
the
no, no,
building.
no. Where do you get the money to get a new sump pump?
Don't worry about your salary.
Okay, resolution authorizing emergency repair for the bathhouse. Whereas the town of Rosendale has begun construction on the existing bathhouse at the Rosendale Recreation Center in preparation for the opening of the pool. And whereas the original plan for the work was to have a new slab poured for the extension and new roof support. And whereas upon working on the above, it was discovered that the existing block foundation of the bathhouse had deteriorated to the point of creating an emergency repair situation. And whereas the code enforcement officer has reviewed the problem and requested quotes from the following: Kirk Van Duzen Masonry, Eric Hansen Masonry, and Countryman Masonry to include the emergency work. Whereas the code enforcement officer received an estimate from Van Duzer Masonry Incorporated of 126 Kingsview Road, Waltham, New York, 12589 for $16,520, was the only one able to start immediately. Now therefore be resolved that the town board of the town of Rosendale authorize supervisor to approve the code enforcement officer to correct the problem based on the estimated receipt.
I'll second that.
All right.
No, go
Don't
ahead and do
fight.
it. No, I'm not gonna, that's it. Give it to Councilman Hassett.
All right.
Big baby.
Roll vote, Councilman Hassett,
Yes.
Councilwoman Metzger,
Yes.
Councilman Kozlowski,
Yes.
Councilman Ryan.
Yes.
Supervisor Walsh.
Yes. So as you can see, we have a very light agenda here. Huh? For once. Give you guys a break. So it's been, 7:28, we're still not even 30 minutes in.
How many more minutes?
You have until 7:36.
Bree, you have a question or a comment?
I was gonna ask a question about the budget, if that's okay,
Yes.
since we have all this time. I've been looking at it, and I was just wondering what process you used in order to raise some salaries and minus some salaries, like some salaries increased by 20%, some went down,
Yeah,
like,
well, let me explain that the line doesn't always reflect the salary. It reflects a budget for that department's all salaries. Sometimes it's to increase maybe hours, it could also be increasing the personnel. Sometimes it's to give a raise, but it's a combination of those things. So it depends on, it depends on the situation. Maybe there might be a recommendation for more staff or more hours for a particular person that's already working there. So those are part of it, plus, raises go on that too.
yeah, but it seems like if, like, one department gets a raise, then shouldn't it be like across the board,
Well,
or?
Every department gets raises.
Mhm.
So typically it's a 2% raise for everybody, unless there's a particular reason. that,
So,
I can't talk about any individual personnel, that's the only thing I can't discuss.
okay, so you can't say why your,
Yeah.
like, your line, that's just your salary?
No, it's my salary and the deputy supervisor and one clerk, or possibly any other staff that comes under that line.
Okay. Yeah, it's confusing, it's a lot to look through and to understand, and,
So does everyone know what the PS, EQ, and CE mean on the budget?
Yeah,
So,
Personal services is PS, CQ is contractual. What else again?
Yeah, and EQ is equipment,
Equipment.
so personnel is, hours and wages, compensation. And contractual is like, could be getting, the servicing for the Xerox machine, the copy machine, or.
And sometimes
Yeah,
it's
some-
actually some personnel who are hired contractually.
Contractual, so that's also some
Yeah.
state
Right.
employees.
And some supplies are gotten contractually.
Yeah.
And then there's equipment like computers.
Mhm.
New truck, things like that.
Mhm. And where's the crossing guard? I had no idea we even had
Well,
one.
we had at first, is that for the,
That's
Street fest.
under police.
Yeah. That is, I don't think it's,
That's, it used to be dedicated specifically to the crossing guard in St. Peter's when the school was open,
Oh, okay.
right? And that was under the auspices of the police department. So
Okay.
that line never disappeared, and that line just reflects their various duties throughout the year of directing traffic. That's what Perry would pull. If there was a traffic detail, that would be the line that Perry would pull that point, what we call it, point one, the personal service out of.
So
Right.
parades.
so.
Or
Parades, things like
the
that.
festivals,
Pickle
things like
festival.
that. Yeah. The
Pickle
pickle
fe- any
festival,
of
they
those,
always have
yeah.
somebody at the pickle festival.
Coming up, by the way.
Yeah. Cool.
It's, it's a very detailed process,
Yeah.
it's an examination of everything, step by step, with department heads. Getting out my little calculator and trying to figure out, what makes sense and what's reasonable. But, I will tell the public, last year, many of you who own property and pay taxes, which should have got a check in the mail this past 2 weeks. And that is a reflection of us keeping the budget under 2%. And again, this budget is under 1%. And it'll reflect having a check again next year. And we also get credit for doing shared services, which this building will give us that. And we're working on some other shared services that will give us more credit. So people have gotten different levels, but I'm not really sure how that works. But the first level, the first check is a reflection of us keeping our budget under 2%. And now we had to keep it under 1.56 this year if we wanted to be eligible, because the cost of living is what they look at now, even though they say 2%, but it's 1.56, which is lower. Basically, it's if the 2% is lower, you go by 2%. If the cost of living is lower, you gotta go by that.
And we were helped greatly by the county assuming the costs of the safety net, so that reduced our budget by $55,000. And then the first installment for the election costs
Yes.
for
Yeah,
2000, which is another
2015.
$9,000 that we didn't have to budget for this year, so that was a big help.
We're, with a lot of towns have not, they make a decision to override the budget of the 2% cap, and then they have to make a case for it. And what we did in the past is we did override the budget, because we had some situations where we thought we might run into trouble, but we never actually did go over the 2%. So we were still eligible, even though we overrode it legally, in case there was an issue, especially with a lot of things that were failing. I didn't want to put us in a position of not legally being in compliance, but after the fact, we were in compliance, and our ratings have gone up 2 levels for financially being sound, and we were just given a stability rating of 3.3, which is extremely high, and some of the in order to qualify. I think the margin is something like 45%, so we're up there on the very, very top. It's financially stable. Of course, one of the things that's also helped us is, if you have the grant money coming in, that doesn't count in your budget. So we were able to use that grant money to do the repairs and the upgrades and the capital improvements, and not have to affect our budget. And when you apply for a grant and you get the grant, some places, we may have capital improvements down the road where we may have no choice but to override the budget, because if you don't get the grant money, you have to use that, you have to use that in your budget for it. So we've been lucky to be able to get that under control, be able to make our water improvements and the other thing that, I'll be honest, we have raised fees, and that's made some difference too. But, Renee's raised the fees, and, I feel that it makes more sense to me to have the fee, and our fees had been kept, not just you know, not just your department, but many of the departments, the fees hadn't been raised for many, many, many years. So it was, you know, wasn't reflective of the times. But having it fee-based, I think, you know, if you need a service, you're paying something for that service rather than everybody paying for everybody's service, you know, everybody to get the service. So it makes more sense that way. And it's more acceptable to the budget and to the way the government wants to see it done.
That was one of the questions too, you reminded me under the police budget. There was a huge jump in the money coming in. And I wondered, is there gonna be like a speed trap set up, or how do you project that?
The police budget? I have to go back and look at that.
Let me look.
I have to go back and look at that line. Doris, you would know what that's for? I don't remember offhand.
The code?
Yeah,
1520.
department income, under department income, the police fees, it's an increase of 900%. And it
Well, what's
just,
the numbers?
1520 big.
It's going up by 13,500.
we're
I'm
looking
sorry,
at page 6,
2,700.
I think it is.
I was reading the wrong line. Yeah, an increase of 2,700. From 300 to 3,000.
What was the budget line?
It's page 6,
A1520.
page 6, toward the bottom.
Police fees.
Yeah, I just wonder where that projection came from.
You know, it probably, I can't remember offhand, but it may have been looking at what was being brought in and making an adjustment based on the history of the past year. That's typically when I see a history change, I'll evaluate it based on that.
Yeah, that did jump out at me, like, are they gonna charge us $50 for parking after 10 o'clock on?
Well, that would be court, that would not be police.
Ah,
That's a
okay.
different thing.
So then what if, like, if they give a ticket and that goes into the court budget,
And
then?
there's some things that they get fees for too. I don't remember offhand what they are. Do you remember?
Accident reports, et
Accident
cetera,
report.
and that's
Oh.
what the chief said.
Yeah, we hadn't
We
been.
thought was gonna come in.
Right, we hadn't been asking what's typically asked, so we raised it to what's typical from other departments.
Oh,
So it's-
charging for accident reports.
Right, charging for things that we do.
I get
So
it.
that brought that up. And that's this kind of thing where, you know, like we did it with Highway, you know, they have to do reports, and we were charging like $5 or something.
Street
you know,
reports.
Street reports, so those are the kind of things that can bring your revenue up, you know, make it more, you know, realistic to what the times are and what people are expecting from, if they went anywhere else to ask for those things, so.
Mhm.
Anybody else have any questions?
I did have one more.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
that's all
I
right.
read this I got it last week, trying to just understand. The aging, Office of the Aging, I think it is, let me find it.
Page on 3.
I'm looking
Oh,
still.
one other thing I forgot to mention is there were changes to the budget because we realized we did some
So
computer
this-
error stuff, so we posted it, let the county know and the public know that this has been updated to reflect. And it wasn't because the budget changed, but because something happened when we processed the formulas, it didn't compute correctly, so we went back and made those corrections.
Okay.
Most of it was stuff that, like, not having the numbers from last year in there correctly, so it really didn't change the budget, just changed the
Okay.
calculation.
For you said,
Which one?
Office for the Aging? That's on page
Yeah,
4.
is that in there? Is that what it's under?
Yeah,
It's like
go
an
on.
84,
Programs
86.
for the aging.
Is that the lunch program?
No.
No.
What is it?
Those are for, there's a couple of senior groups in the town, and they get a check to do, recreation activities and stuff. That's always been
That's
something.
separate from the lunch program?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
The lunch program is a standalone. This line item, like Gene said, for the various senior citizens groups in town, they get stipends for trips and programs and speakers and things like that.
So
And
it's
that's
seniors.
all the town does for the seniors, is that $8,000 or whatever it was?
$6,500, I believe. Oh, no, it's two of them, no, $8,500. That's not all we do. We give that to them, and they decide what they want to do with it. It's their decision. We just give them the money.
What
But
groups?
the other program, that we pay that through the recreation department, is the lunch program and stuff.
We pay the transportation for the lunch program too,
Yeah.
through UCAT.
So they get to ride to the, they get to
Oh,
ride to
so
the,
they
we
get
pay
a
for
ride
that
to
too.
the,
Yes.
Yeah.
and that's under that part of the budget.
That's a different one.
That's a different one.
Yeah. Remember where that comes out of, Doris?
Right. Most of that money in 6772 is for UCAT and the one senior group, and the other one is for the other senior group.
So there's two senior
Two
groups
senior
that get
groups.
funded in town. What are they?
Park Heights and the Rosendale Senior Citizens.
Park Heights and Rosendale Senior. So there's a Park Heights group in
They
the
have
senior
their own
housing?
group
Yeah.
They have a group in there?
Yeah, some of them are infirm and they can't get around, so they offer their own programs within.
Okay.
And it still falls under the auspice of, the Office for the Aging within the town.
Yes,
It
and
just seems like there's such a difference between the aging amounts and the youth program amounts.
well, we don't have a youth, we have a youth program. We have youth programs. The senior citizens take care of their own programs, except for the lunch program. I mean, that's something that,
And under the youth too, there's the youth building and the salaries that go along with that, various programs that are geared
seniors
specific.
don't need supervision, they don't have to be taken care of. When we have youth programs, you have to have staffing, you have to have people watching the building. I mean, if the seniors want to use the lunch room, you don't have to have staff there to take care of them. They just, except for the people preparing the meals and stuff. But, it's a different type of program for them.
Do you happen to know what the demographics are? How many seniors there are in Rosendale as opposed to how much youth there is?
How many seniors as opposed to how many what?
How much youth there is? How many under 18?
I do not know.
Any idea?
Have to
I'm
refer back
assuming
to
that our census
The
would tell us that.
2010 census would
Census would
reflect
tell
that.
us that. I don't know that offhand.
If I remember correctly, Bob, we were a little bit on the high side towards seniors, right?
I signed the seniors there,
Yeah.
but overall lower than those.
And they also do the lunch delivery program out of there too. So people that can't get out, they get lunch delivered to their homes. I mean, the seniors haven't approached us for anything additional or anything for, they seem pretty happy with everything that we have set up for them. Anyone else have a question? All right, I'm gonna make a motion to close the public hearing for the High Falls Water District.
I'll second.
That's two.
Roll vote, Councilman Hassett.
Yes.
Councilwoman Metzger.
Yes.
Councilman Kozlowski.
Yes.
Councilman Ryan.
Yes.
Supervisor Lewis.
Yes. I would like to make a motion to close the public hearing for the Town of Rosendale 2015 budget.
Second that.
Good.
Roll vote, Councilman Hassett.
Yes.
Councilwoman Metzger.
Yes.
Councilman Kozlowski.
Yes.
Councilman Ryan.
Yes.
Supervisor Lewis.
Yes.
Let's go with that.
Thank you all for coming. I am going to make a motion to go in executive session to discuss the employment history of particular employees.
Gene, before we break, if you just notice the dates to remember, the first item is next Tuesday's Veterans Day, November 11th. And as always, there'll be a ceremony at the Veterans Park at 11 o'clock sharp. It's always 11 at 11 a.m. So everybody's invited and encouraged to come down and pay your respects to our veterans.
And also the Pickle Festival is in November, Sunday the 23rd at the Rec Center. And we are closed on Tuesday, November 11th, and Thursday and Friday, the 27th, 28th for Thanksgiving.